Now, since it's Christmas and the New Year festivities are approaching, no doubt a lot of people are going to be partying and eating lots of food during the festive season. And a lot of us of South Asian heritage are going to be eating a lot of Indian food as well. But is there such a thing as healthy Indian food? Now, Sujatha Din has some great tips for us. She's a mindful, encouraging, certified health coach, and she helps busy people to achieve their health goals by working with them on their diet, mind set and lifestyle. And she joins us now. Good evening, Sujatha. Welcome to the show.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Now, traditional Indian festive dishes, how can we make them a little bit healthier without compromising on the taste? How can we add less ghee and the butter and the oils?
So I think we just decide to, reduce the quantities maybe by 10% or 20%, whether it's the ghee, the oil, the sugar, the good, whether it's the sweetener or the oils or the fats. I think what we've got to do is just take a little bit, reduce them off, and you'll find that your family doesn't even notice it.
10%, that's a really good tip, 10%.
Mm-hmm. Because people don't really realize the change by 10%. And if you keep tweaking it, not overnight, reducing it by half, because if you reduced it drastically, your family would notice and say it doesn't quite taste the same. But if you just reduced it by like 10%, 20%, left it at that for, a few weeks, and then try to again tweak it and reduce it, you'd find that again, you're just reducing it gradually so people's taste buds and palate adapts as well. Similarly to what we do with sugar in tea.
Yeah,
just reduce it always gradually.
That's actually a brilliant tip. Now, I mean, over the festive season, there's a lot of indulgent food there. You're going out, you're socializing as well. There's lots of treats. What are some of those practical tips, that you can recommend for us to just make sure that, we can just try to maintain a nutritious, balanced diet during the festive season?
So putting your plate together mindfully. So we often find in the Desi homes when we go out for a party, it's a buffet style meal where, there's just different sort of dishes, and we're just sort of putting, something into our plate. So start putting the healthy foods on your plate first. And when I say healthy, I refer to things like vegetables, whole grains, your protein foods, whether it's your, dal or your chicken or your fish or your paneer. So start with the protein, start with the vegetables. Make sure you put those on the plate rather than starting with the pakoras, the samosas, the parathas, the puris. So leave those for the last thing you're going to put on the plate, because what we want to do is to pile it up with the healthy stuff.
Yeah.
And then we'll realize actually we're going to be quite full on the healthy stuff and we don't need too much of the other food.
That's actually a really good tip. So the first, like if it's a buffet, because always we have buffets, don't we? We always have buffets. So really just help yourself to like the healthy food first of all. Your stomach then, gets a little bit full with that as well, which means you're less likely to kind of indulge in maybe, like you say, the halva and the paratha, etc.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't feel deprived, because if I was to tell somebody, you're not going to have your halvas, your parathas, they would just think, well, I'm going to be quite miserable. It's not going to be a fun festive time. I'm dieting. I'm not going to enjoy myself. But if we just sort of reframe it and think about eating mindfully, eating intuitively, eating more of the healthy foods, we begin to think very differently, and we're more positive about the changes we're making.
No, absolutely. And I mean, everyone's going to go out and about, social gatherings, family events. There's going to be unhealthy food there as well. There's nothing worse. We've been talking about Auntie G's today. There's nothing worse than, not eating the food that an Auntie G has lovingly, kind of lavishly prepared for you. How do you navigate, kind of tricky situations like that?
So I think if Auntie G's made it, she's going to be making sure you're putting some of it in the plate as well, from my experience. So what I would suggest is, again, if she's made many different things, take more of the healthier options, less of the unhealthy options, and try a little bit of everything. And like if she's made, for instance, gulab jamuns, right? You don't want to be having 3 or 4 gulab jamuns. So if she's made gulab jamuns and she spent a lot of time and effort making them, she wants to make sure you've eaten them. So just have one, and if she insists that you have another one, you can just say, look, what one's really good enough for me. I'm quite full. I don't feel like eating anymore.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, I'm on a diet, I'm not going to eat it, just have one, enjoy it, eat it mindfully, eat it, and savor the taste, enjoy, every bite that you eat guilt-free, but then just decide, the one is enough for me. Yeah. Because you've already eaten a proper meal, so you don't need to be having 3 or 4 to feel full.
Our traditional Indian sweets, Mike, I mean, I love Ambala, other Indian sweet shops are available, but I mean, it is so sweet, aren't they?
And they're too sweet, and also they're very high in fat. So it's just, sort of that double-edged sword where you're having too much sugar, too much fat, and both sugar and fat are very addictive. So you can't stop them overnight, but you just reduce them. And rather than buying the brands that have got more sugar, and the ones that are like higher in fat, higher in sugar, just sort of read the labels, try and buy those that have got less sugar, less fat in them. And if you've got the time, try and make some of your own homemade mithai, because what you'll find is you're using natural sugars, you're not using the refined sugars, and you're using less of the sugar as well, because you can adapt it to your own palate. And there are some sugars that are healthier than others. There's a rise right now, in diabetes just worldwide, but also within our basic community. There's so many people who are at risk of diabetes and heart disease. And I think if we just make a few small changes on a daily basis, we change the trajectory of these diseases and the likelihood of experiencing them.
Yeah. No, I mean, this all makes sense. These are really brilliant tips. Now, look, lastly, I'm really interested in mindfulness and the role, that can play in fostering healthier kind of eating habits. Tell me a bit more about this.
So mindful eating is something that's really key and part of my programs. I guide on meditation as well. I guide on mindfulness. And all what we're doing through these is bringing in awareness of what we're eating and being present while we're eating. All of us, including myself, we're very guilty of, eating on the go, eating, while watching TV, eating while reading. So at least 1 or 2 meals a day, try and just sit down and when eating, eat. And this may seem difficult because we're quite used to multitasking. But when we just sit down to eat, we're focusing on the food that we're eating. And as we are present, we begin to really notice the food. We'll notice the color, the shape, the textures. We'll notice the smell. We can notice, how it's been cooked. We even begin to notice the taste because we're having one bite at a time. We chew it. We don't just take a few bites and then, finish it and gulp it down very quickly, but we're actually slowing down and chewing our food. And that means we're slowing the whole eating process. Often we eat too quickly, and what happens is we're overeating because we don't realize we're full. But when we eat mindfully, we chew our food, we enjoy it, we put down in the cutlery between our bites as well. And we end up eating less, not because you're being told to eat less, but because you realize you're actually feeling quite satisfied and you don't need to be eating that much as well.
Yeah, and is there a really easy, healthy meal, that can be rustled up really quickly to make kind of, on the go, something that you can prepare to take with you?
Yes, definitely. So if you are thinking of like a warmer meal, I'll give an example of a warm meal right now because, as we're going to winter, and it won't take long. So you could use any canned beans. It could be kidney beans, or it could be chickpeas or, black-eyed beans. So just take a can of beans, drain it, and then just do a saute of some ginger, garlic in olive oil, just a tadka, right? Like how we do the oil. You can put some cumin seeds and then put some ginger, garlic, some onion, do a quick, tadka, and then throw in the beans and then just cut some vegetables and put those in. It could be things like broccoli, it could be carrots, peppers, mushrooms. Do a quick stir fry with the chickpeas or the kidney beans and the vegetables. And then you can add in, to make it more satisfying, we do need to eat grains. We don't need to stop eating grains. So to make it more satisfying, add whole grains. You could add in, some brown rice into it, and then just do a quick mix. Add in some spices like cumin powder, curry powder, turmeric, your chili, your salt, and that'll make it taste quite nice.
And it's really about using the spice as well, isn't it? Just to make it really flavoursome as well. I love that, and that's not that difficult to rustle up, is it?
No, it's not at all. It'll take you, like, if you're using canned beans, the whole thing, less than 15 minutes.
Brilliant. Sujatha, I've learnt a lot. I love what you've said about mindfulness. I'm going to practice that. I'm absolutely going to practice that, just to slow down and to just enjoy every single mouthful. You take care, Sujatha. Thank you so much for joining us. And have a brilliant festive time. You take care. Sujatha there. I've learnt a lot there. Sujatha then, just about mindfulness, eating in a more mindful way as well. That's incredibly important as well. And just kind of planning the food and just thinking about what you're eating.